Hello and welcome to Part 6 of the Beginner's Guide to Star Citizen. In this video, you will learn all about the hardware requirements for playing Star Citizen. Now, the reason why I'm doing this video is because on the RSI online forums, pretty much every day somebody posts a message that says, hey, I've got this kind of a computer, it's got these specifications, can I play Star Citizen? And so I thought it would be useful to make an entire video on this one particular question. Before we get started, I have to mention a little something about Chris Roberts, the person who is the brainchild for Star Citizen. He has developed a lot of blockbuster computer space games, and he has a reputation for pushing hardware to its very limits with all the games that he writes. So what this means is when you play Star Citizen on your computer, you're pretty much guaranteed your hardware is going to be screaming for mercy because Star Citizen is going to push it to the breaking point. So this is another way of saying you're going to need a fairly high quality computer to run Star Citizen in any satisfactory way. Now, to get things started, I want to give you a really quick outline of which components you need to be concerned about when it comes to playing Star Citizen at its optimal, finest quality. The main components to be concerned about are your motherboard, the processor chip that resides on the motherboard, your memory or RAM, your hard drive, either a solid-state drive or a mechanical hard drive, and most of all, your graphics card. Before moving on, there are two things about your motherboard that I should point out really quick. The first of which is the expansion slots located here. You want to make sure you have the right type of slots and the right number of slots on your motherboard. So, for example, if you want to install two graphics cards on your board, you want to make sure that they have two identical slots right next to each other so that you can connect the two cards together easily. Or if you're going to install a sound card or a wireless adapter card, you want to make sure that the motherboard has the appropriate slots for those cards. The other thing about the motherboard to look out for is how many slots you have for your memory sticks, which are located here. You don't want a motherboard that only has 4 slots for 4 sticks of memory. You want to have as many slots as possible. Typically, we're talking about 8, which is what is shown on this card where you have 4 slots on either end of the main chip. And the reason why you want as many slots as possible is, like I said, Star Citizen is going to be a huge game, and it's going to be a memory hog, basically. So if you only have 4 slots on your motherboard, which quite frankly isn't very common these days, but let's say you do have 4, and each of those slots is filled with a 1 gigabyte memory stick. Well, if you want to expand your memory, you're going to have to tear out 1, 2, or maybe all of those sticks and put them up on a shelf and replace them with brand new ones. Whereas if you have extra slots that aren't being used, you just buy new ones, plug them in, keep on using the old ones you had before. But, if you really want to get technical about it, the purist computer builder would say you should always have all your slots filled with the same brand of memory, the same configuration, the same speed, so that you don't create any bottlenecks caused by the slowest memory stick in the set. 2 other items you may be interested in, but are optional to a certain extent, would be a gamepad controller and some kind of a joystick. Now, these come down to personal preference. For myself, I don't really like gamepad controllers, but for flying around in space, there's nothing better for me than a good quality joystick. But again, everybody's different. Everybody has different tastes, different ways of playing the game, so these two are up to you. Now, one other thing that you may be interested in is a high-quality sound card. I haven't heard that much from Cloud Imperium Games regarding the quality of sound that the game is going to have, but I would imagine it's going to have some really amazing, Dolby Digital 5.1 channel surround sound, awesome experience. So a good quality sound card might be something you want to think about. Optional, of course. And of course, alongside the sound card, you want some really awesome speakers or some really, really nice headphones. But again, these things are optional. Next, I'd like to show you some possible hardware configurations for a low-end, mid-range, and high-end computer system for playing Star Citizen. Okay, so here we have a nice, handy-dandy little chart that I made. And as you can see on one side, we have the CPU chip, graphics card, memory, some sort of a hard drive, and the operating system. Now, as you can see, I have not included the motherboard, and the reason for that is that the motherboard doesn't really contribute that much to how well Star Citizen will perform on your computer. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, it does, but for our purposes, this being a beginner's guide series, we don't need to get into that fine detail. Now, as you can see along the top there, I have not acceptable performance, acceptable performance, and holy crap performance. That's my favorite. By not acceptable, I mean basically you're not going to be able to play Star Citizen. Maybe you'll be able to scrape by with very low graphic settings and very low frame rates, but it's basically not going to work for you. Pretty good means you'll have a satisfactory experience with the whole game overall. Not fantastic, not stellar, but, you'll be happy with it. The holy crap version, on the other hand, will make you feel like you've died and gone to Star Citizen heaven, whereas the other guys are going to be worrying about frame rates as low as, 30, 40 frames per second. You'll be running Star Citizen at 9,000 frames per second. Okay, maybe I over-exaggerate just a little bit on that. But anyway, you'll be able to play Star Citizen smooth as silk, and it will look beautiful. So let's get down to what hardware configurations you can get with each of these three levels. Let's take the not acceptable performance level first. If you have a dual-core Intel or AMD processor, which means they have two core processors on board the chip instead of one, and you have sort of a lower-end NVIDIA or AMD graphics card, like the GTX 460 or the HD 5850, with 2 to the 4 gigs of RAM and a mechanical hard drive as opposed to a solid-state drive, and you're using Windows 7, the 64-bit version, you can expect Star Citizen to crash and burn every time you try to play it. Now, one thing I should mention right away is that these configurations apply to Star Citizen as it exists right now in the testing phase, where you're testing out the various modules that I spoke of in video number 5 in this series. So this doesn't apply to when Star Citizen launches a year and a half, 2 years from now. It applies to playing it right now. In the pretty good category, if you have a quad-core Intel or AMD chip, which is a chip with 4 processor cores instead of 2, and a NVIDIA GTX 670 or a AMD Radeon R9 280 with 4 to 8 gigs of RAM and a solid-state drive, which is a lot faster than a mechanical drive, and you're using Windows 8 64-bit, then you'll have a pretty good experience with Star Citizen. And I could hear some of you now saying, while you're watching this, that is he recommending those particular graphics cards for those various levels of performance? Well, no, I'm not. I am fully aware that AMD and NVIDIA make a wide range of cards that suit various niches in computer performance. So in the pretty good category here, I'm not saying that only the GTX 670 will give you that kind of performance. That's sort of a ballpark quality of graphics card where you could expect that kind of performance out of the computer. So in a way, I'm saying these are just very general guidelines. Now, if you want the ultimate experience with Star Citizen, you want the holy crap version. You want a hexacore processor, which means a processor that has 6 processor cores on board. These particular types of chips are known for extremely high performance. You also want something along the lines of a NVIDIA GTX 980, which is a fairly recent graphics card brought out by NVIDIA, and that is a sweet card. Or the AMD R9 290X, also an exceptional card. Furthermore, if you have 8 to 16 gigs of RAM on board, you'll be in pretty good shape. And if you're running a solid-state drive and Windows 8 64-bit version, well, all those things put together, you're going to have a sweet machine that's going to play Star Citizen beautifully. Now, 3 things I should point out is that currently, and this is like an alpha pre-alpha stage, currently Star Citizen takes up 21 gigabytes on your hard drive. So that's something you want to check into to see how much space you have currently if you're thinking of getting into the game, because you might have to buy a whole other hard drive for it. Also, the operating system for Star Citizen, it has to be 64-bit. It can't be a 32-bit operating system. It has to do with performance. So you need a 64-bit version of Windows, whether that's Windows 7 or Windows 8. And again, all these specifications apply to playing with Star Citizen as it currently exists in the alpha and pre-alpha stage. So please do not think that I'm recommending these particular configurations for playing Star Citizen when it comes out in like a year and a half, 2 years from now. It's only for today. Another question I see on the RSI forums once in a while is a person has a laptop and they want to know how well Star Citizen will perform on their laptop computer. Well, the simple answer is not as well as if you were playing it on a desktop computer. And there are several reasons for this. The main problem that laptop computers have relate to heat issues, in that a laptop computer is not as efficient at dissipating heat as a tower or a case desktop style computer can. There simply is not nearly as much air circulation inside a laptop, whereas in a desktop computer with a large case, there's lots of air volume, lots of room to sweep that hot air out of the back of the computer. That's something you don't have with a laptop. Now, generally speaking, in a very general sense, the hotter a computer runs, the less efficient it is. Another issue with laptops is one that relates directly to the first issue of too much heat being generated inside the laptop, and that is something called underclocking. What that means is certain pieces of hardware in your laptop are designed to run at a certain speed, and the faster they run, the more heat they generate. Well, what happens is the software in your laptop can sense that your components are overheating, and it will dial them back as far as how fast they are performing. That's called underclocking. So the hotter it gets inside your laptop, the less performance you're going to get out of the components inside of it. Also, because the components in a laptop are, again, generally speaking, not as powerful as those in a desktop computer, you're going to more than likely have to settle for lower graphic settings when you play Star Citizen. You won't be able to play it at its optimum levels. So, for example, where somebody with a desktop computer may be able to play Star Citizen at 60 frames per second, which is fairly ideal, on a laptop, you may be reduced to 35, 40 frames per second, or sometimes even less than that. Now, the final issue is fan noise in the laptop. Because Star Citizen is going to be pushing your hardware to its maximum potential, there's going to be a lot of heat generated inside your laptop, which means your fan is not going to be just running at idle speed. It's going to be running at full speed all the time. And that can get pretty darn annoying. Now, the heat issues can be resolved to a certain extent by adding what's called a cooling pad. And they look something like this. There are all sorts of manufacturers of these things, different sizes for different laptops and so on. And what a cooling pad is basically a thin rectangular pad that is filled with fans that your laptop sits on top. And these fans help to get the hot air out of your laptop much, much more efficiently than the single fan that's built into your laptop. And these run anywhere from $30 all the way up to around $100. So if you're stuck with a laptop and you want to play Star Citizen, maybe go this route. This might help you out. Now, one thing that people who have laptops mention sometimes is they'll say, well, my laptop has for example, a NVIDIA GTX 980 graphics processor in it. And that's a pretty hefty, pretty high-quality processor. And because they have what they consider to be a high-end processor, they think that their laptop can handle Star Citizen without any problems. What they fail to realize sometimes is that NVIDIA, for example, they make two lines of processors, one for desktop computers and one for laptop computers. And the processor units for laptops have a M after the number. So in this case, the person that we're referring to would have a GTX 980M, which stands for mobile. So why is this important? Well, the mobile graphic processor units are scaled down as far as how many cores they have, the base clock speed, memory clock speed, and lots of other factors. So it is a GTX 980, but it's sort of a watered-down version. And one of the reasons why they water them down is because that processor is inside of a laptop where it's much more difficult to dissipate the heat. And graphic processor units generate a lot of heat, so they have to scale back how fast and how hard these things run so that they don't generate as much heat. So to answer the question, can you play Star Citizen on a laptop? The answer is yes, kind of. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you're not really going to enjoy it as much as other people who have like a desktop computer. So you will be able to play Star Citizen, but you're not going to have fun. Let's just put it that way. And again, this is just my opinion. All right, so we have gone over which components in your computer you need to be concerned about, and we've looked at low-end, medium-end, and high-end component configurations if you want to build your own computer to play Star Citizen on. And we've also examined the issues related to playing Star Citizen on a laptop computer. However, the question that arises is, that's all very well and good, but when Star Citizen comes out, what sort of a computer am I going to need then? Well, I'm glad you asked. For you see, we here at Citizen Academy pride ourselves in bringing you the most up-to-date technical information in order to help bring you the most enjoyable Star Citizen playing experience. With that aim in mind, we have been consulting with the Technology Research Branch of Citizen Academy, and they have come up with a sensible and moderately priced Star Citizen gaming computer that we absolutely 100% guarantee will allow you to play Star Citizen at its optimal, finest quality. So let's put together a little shopping list for you so that you can start saving up your money to buy these components, to build your own computer so that when Star Citizen finally is out, you'll be able to build this computer and play Star Citizen in utter bliss. So let's put up our shopping list over here on the right, and let's get going. The first component you're going to need is a really big computer case, such as this one, the Obsidian Series 900D. This is a really nice case. It has lots of good air circulation in there to vent out all that heat, and it has this cool viewing window on the side so you can show off all your components to your buddies when they come over to play Star Citizen with you. And these run for around $350. The next thing you're going to want to get is a high-quality motherboard. Nothing too fancy, but high quality. The Asus Rampage 5 Extreme will do very nicely for our needs, and it only costs $550. And check out that color scheme. Isn't that just pretty? Now, to plug into that motherboard, you're going to want a really fast CPU chip. And I can think of nothing better than the Intel 4960X. The base clock rate is 3.6 gigahertz, and you can overclock this baby to 4 gigahertz. That is screaming fast. And check out that price. Very, very reasonable. Only $1,025. Now, you're going to need lots and lots of memory to play Star Citizen. Right now, the recommended amount of memory you should be using is 8 gigabytes. But, that's only for the alpha testing and beta testing phase. So we figure when the game is released, it's going to require a lot more memory. So you don't want to skimp here, and you want fast, high-quality memory too. So let's pick up some Corsair Dominator Platinum memory sticks. And hey, we've got space for them on the motherboard, so let's go all out and go for 64 gigabytes. After all, RAM is really cheap these days, and for all this memory, it's only going to cost you $1,700. So, again, very, very reasonable, very economic. You are also going to want lots of storage space on this computer, and I mean a lot. So let's not hold back here at all. What we suggest is a Seagate 6 terabyte hard drive. Now, I can hear some of you guys saying, with Star Citizen being such a big program, it's going to take up a lot of space on your main hard drive. So you're going to need lots of space on your secondary hard drives. Well, we understand. That's why we suggest that you not just get one secondary hard drive, and not two, but go all out and just get 3 of them, so you'll have 18 terabytes of extra storage space. So these babies will come to $1,180 total. And yes, I know you're saying, hey, Citizen Academy, that price of this computer is getting really expensive. All right, so these components are a little bit on the spendy side, but hey, when it comes to Star Citizen, you want quality. And be assured that the rest of the components on this list have a very reasonable price. So don't worry about it. Now, for storing your operating system and for storing Star Citizen onto your computer, you want a solid-state drive. You recall I said that solid-state drives are much faster than mechanical hard drives. Now, right now, Star Citizen is around 21, 22 gigabytes. However, nobody knows how big Star Citizen is going to be when it's released in a year and a half or 2 years. So here at Citizen Academy, our policy is better safe than sorry. So we suggest a Corsair Neutron Series XT with 960 gigabytes of storage. And those sell for a measly $670. Too expensive, you may say? Well, you're not considering this fact. Check this out. The color of the solid-state drive matches perfectly with a motherboard. Now, is that worth the extra money or what? Here at Citizen Academy, we think it is. Now you're going to be needing a lot of power to supply all these high-end components. So we suggest a Corsair XT1200, which will supply 1200 watts of power to all your components. And now we get down to the heart of this computer, the graphics card. Now when it comes to selecting a graphics card to play Star Citizen, we can think of none better than the NVIDIA Titan Z. This is one of the most powerful graphics cards ever created by mankind. It is extremely fast, and it has lots of onboard graphic memory. So whereas most graphic cards have 2 gigs of online memory, and the higher end have 4, the Titan Z has, get this, 12 gigabytes of RAM. So you should definitely pick up one of these babies. Wait a minute, did I say one? I mean, why pick up just one of these when they only cost $3,900 each? At that price, hey, come on, be sensible about this. You can afford 2 of these babies, and those will come to $7,800. Again, a very, very reasonable price. Nod your head if you agree with me. Now, these graphic cards are going to produce a lot of heat, so the fans that they have in them might not quite do the trick, so you're going to need some liquid cooling. And we recommend the Corsair Hydro Series H80s. And since we have 2 GPUs, you're going to need 2 of these babies. Fortunately, they're not very expensive, and they only come to around $508. Now, those cooling systems are designed for a CPU, but you can get these nifty little brackets to attach to your Titan Z cards, and you can attach those cooling systems to the cards themselves, thereby guaranteeing they'll stay nice and frosty no matter how long you play Star Citizen. Now, with a game like Star Citizen, you're going to want to have a really nice, high-quality monitor. So we recommend the Asus VE276Q, a beautiful 27-inch Full HD LCD monitor. These are really, really sweet monitors. Now, the only issue I have with these monitors is that they cost around $3,000 each. But hey, what the hell? Throw caution to the wind. Let's get 2 of these babies. Wait, did I say 2? No. Let's get 3. What the hell? And that brings us to a little over $9,000 for these beautiful monitors. And again, need I say it, a very sensible and moderately priced set of monitors. Now, having Star Citizen look good is one thing, but it has to sound good as well. And I imagine a game as massive as Star Citizen is going to have some awesome sound. So you want a sound card that's really going to be able to show it off to its fullest potential. And we recommend the Asus Sonar Essence ST sound card, which allows for a full Dolby Digital surround sound experience. And they're not really that expensive, only $215. And of course, if you're getting a nice sound card, you're going to want a nice set of speakers as well. Something along the lines of this, the Logitech Z5500 THX certified 5.1 digital surround sound speaker system. A very beautiful set of speakers with a very reasonable price of only $2,000. Now, when it comes to keyboards, it really comes down to personal preference. But we here at Citizen Academy recommend the Razer Deathstalker Ultimate Gaming Keyboard. And here is why. If you look carefully on this keyboard, you'll see a little LCD screen on the right-hand side where you can customize what appears on that screen. In fact, you can have it look like this. Now, is that cool or what? I mean, for that reason alone, this is the keyboard you should get. And it only costs around $265. When it comes to selecting a gaming mouse, again, this all comes down to personal preference. One really nice mouse to consider is the Logitech G502 Proteus Core. It feels very comfortable in the hand. You can adjust the weight of the mouse. It has several buttons you can program for various functions. A very nice mouse indeed. And at $62, a very reasonable price. Now, if you prefer to use a joystick instead of a mouse and keyboard when you're flying around in space, we can recommend nothing finer than the Thrustmaster Warthog joystick, and throttle. These are built like tanks. Full metal construction, extremely durable, extremely accurate, very comfortable to use. And those come in at around $450. And for those of you who want a complete 3D immersion experience when playing Star Citizen, why not get an Oculus Rift headset? And those come in at around $775. And as we come to the end of our shopping list, there are a few other things you might want to consider. One of them is a CD burner. There are all sorts of kinds out there. We're just recommending this one because it's a fairly high quality one. And they only cost $22. If you don't want to have an Ethernet cable connected to your computer and you would rather have a wireless network, you should get a wireless adapter card. And those are also very low priced at around $20 or so. And for the operating system, we recommend Windows 8.1 64-bit, which in our experience runs Star Citizen with the least amount of hiccups. And that runs for $99. And now we come to the moment of truth, the grand total for all these fine computer components. And the grand total comes to $27,183. Now, you have to agree that is a very sensible and very reasonable price, especially for a game like Star Citizen. Now, for those of you who say, $27,000 for a computer to play Star Citizen? That's insane! Well, my only reply to that is, what is wrong with you? I mean, you spend $150 on a spaceship to play Star Citizen, and you're not willing to spend $27,000 on a computer? What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, what is the world coming to these days? And so there you have it, a nice overview of the hardware requirements for playing Star Citizen. Now on that last bit, where I was giving you a shopping list for all the parts you need to build a super duper Star Citizen computer, you got to realize that you can get by with spending a hell of a lot less than $27,000 on a computer to play Star Citizen. I mean, most of what I was saying there was just for fun. I really wasn't being that serious. Or was I? Anyway, that's it for this video. I've really been enjoying the comments you guys have been leaving on this series, and keep them coming. I love to answer all your questions, and I love to hear all the comments on how much you guys are enjoying this series. And of course, if you really want to show support for my channel, please click on the subscribe button below. And finally, as always, this is Citizen Academy, wishing all of you fame and fortune in the verse.